Hi there, my name is Ryan Myers. I'm here with Danger's Edge, and today I wanted to talk about finding ideal stumps in nature. Now, there's a lot that goes into finding really ideal stumps. Some of it is subjective, some of it is objective, but I'm just going to run through it. So obviously you want a stump where there's a nice flat face. This is where you're going to get really good sticks. It's going to get a very acoustic sound, and it's just an easy target for your mind to identify with, as opposed to like a stump that's all jagged and pointy. You're going to want to make sure that your stump doesn't have some crazy background you're going to lose your knives on, unless you're very confident in your throwing. Sometimes it kind of comes down to how you're feeling in the mood, if you really want a specific throw or not. You're going to want to make sure that your log is not facing the ground. I mean, you can throw at those. Personally, I don't like those, and the bounce back of hitting the knife here always comes back to you pretty surprisingly, I would say. You want to find stumps that have a nice background to them, a nice place for you to feel like you're in nature.
I like it a lot.
A lot of stumps I see on the internet, people are just throwing in a room, and it's not very tantalizing or like provocative for the eye. So coming out here and having the sun's actually very important too. You want to make sure that the sun is hitting the stump in a way that doesn't give it too much shadow, especially if you're filming on the GoPro like I do, because the GoPro is very punishing when it comes to shadows. You want to make sure that you pick a stump that isn't too cracked, because sometimes when they're loose and flaky, your knives will go right through them and you can lose them that way. I've lost knives like that, and also when there's a big hole in it, like some animals burrowed in there or something, you can lose knives that way too. A lot of stumps that I choose to throw at aren't like these, where I'd call them rounds, where they cut down a tree entirely. These are really fun and basic to throw at. You can throw at these all day, but you know, when it comes to what you throw at, it's just like the throws that you're throwing. You gotta make sure that it's interesting and it's not too repetitive. I try and throw differently in different sequences as much as I can, because I like the diversity. And the same with stumps. I like to throw at stumps. They're parts of trees still, some are logs. There's a lot that goes into picking the right spot to throw, as well as the throw that you're adding into the stump. So a lot to consider there. And this is a very basic kind of nature stump. You're gonna find these everywhere. I'll take you to a more exotic one next and show you more of my flavor of knife throwing that's more diverse and very captivating because the environment's very new. And we'll hop to that right now. This kind of log I would consider to be very cool and a pretty good setup for a really good knife throw or axe throw. When you think of like filming a really good video clip, I think you have to take in mind all of these surroundings as well. Like, you want to have a really cool throw, you want to have like your nice fit on, you want to have like good lighting, and of course like a good background, somewhere where it's interesting to see where you're at. That's why I like the traveling knife throwing and axe throwing videos that I make. They're really fun to make too, because you're on hikes, but also that they look interesting, you know? Like, once the clip ends and the next one begins, it's like you don't know what you're gonna see, and I think that's exciting. What makes this really cool in my opinion is because there's a lot of different plant life here. It's very lush, as you can see, and the log's in a very interesting position. It's resting upon this other log, giving it like that propped up feeling, which I always love throwing at. I hate throwing down at targets when they're on the floor. So this one has that nice prop, and it's kind of angled back. So it's like you're throwing onto something that's facing the sky as opposed to facing the ground. And this log too is also like cut in half here. This is why I threw an axe, because I think a knife would get lost deep inside there. I can't even see the end of it. So an axe on something like this is what I would consider more preferable. And what you can't really see from this angle of the filming, at least, is that there isn't really anywhere that you would lose a knife if you missed. That's always the worst, is that some places have an issue where the knife will bounce and go under the dirt if the soil's soft, or if it's on a downhill incline, it just goes down a lot farther than you're expecting it to. So I would recommend sticking to something like this, where the ground behind it is a little lush, but it's like if you see where the knife falls, you'll be able to retrieve it. And a lot of stuff you'll find where there's big bushes behind the stump, it's just like you miss, it's gonna be really unpleasant to have to dig back there, maybe for like 30 minutes to find your knife, or you give up and you leave a knife there and you're bummed about that. So I would recommend something like this, and at this angle with this kind of lighting, it just looks fantastic. And this is an ideal stump. This is a great spot to throw. You could throw here for a long time, and it's not too far off the trail. That's the other thing too. So this throw I did, like, I'm probably 50 yards from the trail, and that's kind of a good distance where you don't really deal with like people stopping and staring at you. and you don't get too far into the woods where it's like isolation, you know? Like there is the opportunity that, or the potential that you can get hurt doing this kind of stuff. It's really slim once you get the hang of it and you know like the rotations. But for beginners, if you get like hit in your head by your own axe, if you're throwing too close or something like that, like you don't want to have to like crawl a mile through the woods to get help, you know? So this is a pretty good location. Anything you can spot off the trail is usually a good throwing spot. You know, just watch out for pedestrians. Oh, I left the sticker on from earlier. Just realized that.
Come on, man.
Well,